Welcome back to another podcast of Stroke of Reality. My name's Kevin. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I've had my stroke 11 years, almost 12 years coming up. And I'm joined by my partner from the US of A,
Woo.
Jessica. Hey, Jess, how are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm good. USA, USA.
Happy 4th, belated 4th. You guys
Yes.
just celebrated on the weekend. 250 years.
Yeah, long
Wow.
time. But in the grand scheme of things, still very young as a country.
Yeah, that's true. But hey, you're getting there.
Yeah,
So today,
250 years. Oh, sorry, Kevin. I was going to say 250 years is long for you and I.
yeah,
Young for the world, which is
yeah.
similar to stroke recovery, right? You've been out 11 years or so. I've been out about 3.5 years, which is seems like a lot, but is nothing by way of stroke recovery, right?
Absolutely. And that's going to kind of segue us into our topic today. Today, the world has been kind of sitting still, and Jess and I were talking. The World Cup has been going on. We've been fortunate of our countries have been hosts of it, hence Jess's USA, who just recently lost, and Canada just recently lost their matches, so they are now officially out. But the USA will be hosting the remaining, I think, four games that are left, five games. So we want to kind of make the World Cup and recovery sort of the pattern or the parallel, if you want to call it. And I'm not saying that recovery is a game, though. In a fun aspect of recovery, you can turn it into a game of trying to get better and doing all these different things to help your body get better. Well, why do we want to bring in the two together and why here now? Well, the World Cup, he said, brought together 48 nations from around the world together in North America and Mexico to play a game called soccer or football, as you call it in Europe. And what we noticed through the whole process is the way people came together. Countries came together. I know here back home where we are, we hosted six games, and it was just great to see so many countries come together. I know in the state of Boston, Massachusetts, Scotland brought in 40,000 people just to that and drank out all the beer. Now, what does that have to do with recovery? Well, recovery is a team sport. And I think people have to understand that we do not recover based on our own. Jess and I just didn't go out on our own and got better. We had from the moment we are diagnosed with a stroke, the moment we're in the hospital lying in bed, we have a team of people. Now, the team of people ranges from the healthcare professionals, from all the doctors, nurses, PSWs, and our therapists. All of them have become an integral part of our team. They are the front line for us because at the beginning, they're the ones that try to make us comfortable. They're the ones that try to make us better. And as you move through, obviously, mom and dad, if your parents are both still around, your brothers and sisters, if you have nieces and nephews, they all become part of the integral part of your team. And then lastly, your friends. They become sort of that goalie or the backbone because they're the ones we hang out with in the long term. We don't see our parents as much as we see some of our friends. And so that's all part of the process we run. So Jess and I today are going to acknowledge and talk about our team and how we recovered. So Jess, I'm going to let you start. Let's talk about your team and the people that you are, most thankful. I know there are so many people you want to be thankful for, but maybe you can talk about, the who, what, where, and when, why, about the people that have become a big part of your life.
Sure. I know, first and foremost, starting the day of my stroke, the people that acknowledged and noticed that something wasn't right. So those incredible humans, um, I know not everybody knows them, but so I won't list their names, but they know who they are. The person that noticed I was drooling from the left side of my face and had the droop, the person that, contacted the hospital and dialed 911. And then, of course, excuse me, my partner, Jason, who with his friend, swung me into the vehicle and drove me to the hospital since the first responders were going to take a little too long to get to my house to, to assess the situation. So, first and foremost, it's, very close friends and my partner in crime for life.
Yeah.
And then my parents are still with us. So my mom has played a huge part in my recovery, a lot with, driving me to appointments, getting me to, special care visits, etc. And just sitting with me, through the lonely days of recovery and helping with exercises at home.
Yeah, I can hear you because I've met your mom and yeah, great lady. And she actually flew into Toronto when you came down to visit friends with
Mhm.
you. So yeah, and they're an integral part. And we'll break this down sort of into these three segments. So like Jess, mine, I have to say, my beginning was my family. Mine happened Christmas Eve, as everyone know. We do a big Italian. My wife's Italian, so we have a big Italian gathering on Christmas Eve. I had actually shown up at the house prior at my own home. I didn't feel great. I felt kind of wobbly. Uh, and then by the time I got out to their place, as soon as I got up to the doorway, they all told me I looked like S, and they told me I should get to a hospital. And I did feel hot, and I was, it was minus 20 in Toronto at that time, so it was cold, but I felt really hot. So part of the fortitude of them sending me to the hospital was a number one, like Jess, whose friends noticed that something was going off, and her partner and their friend decided to get her to a hospital. Me was I went to the hospital. We taxied out to the hospital, went there, and it was then we started to realize there's something going on. So yeah, that's the important part. We talk about be fast is sort of that acronym now of recovery. And I think
Mhm.
we've mentioned this before in our other podcasts, but yeah, I mean, it takes the fortitude of people, and that is sort of the front line of people knowing there's something wrong and that we need help. So, good on our friends. And I thank my in-laws every time I see them because if they didn't send me to the hospital, who knows what would have happened? I might have been there, might have just died in the spot. Could be the worst thing, dying right in front of your friends, as you would know as
Mm.
well, because you and I are both in celebration. You, I think New Year's, me was Christmas Eve, so we're
Mhm.
holiday babies. So
Yeah.
once you get to the hospital, once you get checked in, what's next? Just who are some of the people you remember? And I don't know how much you remember because I know you went through a lot. So
I remember, the nursing team was very significant in my recovery and care in the hospital. I was in the hospital for a total of 3 or 4 months post stroke. So the nursing teams within the Pittsburgh hospitals, as Kevin said, I'm in USA in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And anyone that knows Pittsburgh knows that we have two incredible hospital systems, both AHN and UPMC. And I got to spend time in both hospital systems. But the nursing team was amazing across the board. And I remember the ones that really stood out too. So,
that's good. Yeah, yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Did Jason know what hospital to take you to, or was that just the closest one to go to?
The closest one to our house is about 5 minutes away, Allegheny General Hospital. So that's where I went initially because time, as we know, is of the essence when it comes to getting care during a stroke incident or situation.
Yeah, great. Yeah, for me, it was like we went down. We could have went probably to a hospital a little bit closer, but my wife works in the healthcare area, so we went down to Toronto General, and they did all the diagnosis and that. It was a skeleton crew, and probably like you was more skeletal because holiday, right? Everyone's on
Right.
holidays. Um, they misdiagnosed me at the beginning, not their fault because they said I had a sore arm, so the whole process
Hmm.
wasn't done. We did the ECG right away. Everything came out, and it was because I was having high blood pressure, wasn't coming down. I was in I was more in the emerge area in the hospital,
Hmm.
and the doctors that was on call actually happened to be a friend of my wife's. He had worked for their hospital. So they were talking about baby pictures and all that, and it was kind of funny. I'm sitting here lying there waiting, and then finally we're about to go home and realize the blood pressure wasn't coming down, it was going up. So we did the CAT scan, and he found the blockage in the right side of my neck. And from there on in, it was like they checked me in. I got into what they needed to do was move me to a better hospital for head trauma. So there's one down the road, sister hospital to the one I was at, and we did that. So I thank the ambulance guys that drove me on, working on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Young guys, I remember, I don't remember the names, but seeing them that they're young guys. One was going home right after he dropped me off, and another one had to work another shift. And then I got to ICU, and it was there that everything started. I had a nurse, a male nurse, great guy, and made me comfortable. And I was in ICU waiting for all the next steps. But
Mhm.
yeah, he talked to me all night because I was kind of freaking out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for our hospital system. That's probably you are that you had great care getting in. So
Oh,
what's next?
yes.
What happened to you after that? After you're now in the hospital, they've checked you in. What happened? Who were the next people you kind of bumped into while you were there?
Well, the next people I bumped into, it was as you know, with acute recovery, they want you in and out as fast as possible. They need the beds for someone else that's going through a traumatic experience as well. So in order to get you out, they have to make sure that we can walk or take care of ourselves independently or as independently as possible. So waking up from a coma after 18 days, I started seeing the rehab team, right? So the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, to get me back on my feet and to recover for my arm function. So
Yeah,
those were the two next people that I bumped into or, worked with, if you will.
yeah, absolutely. So it means for 18 days, you knew nothing. You were
Correct. I
lying.
was
You were
sleeping.
lying in the hospital.
Yep.
Wow. So you really didn't know. Did you know that you were in a hospital when you woke up? Did you have any idea what was going on?
Not really. And in my coma, I had had some funky dreams. So those are the people that I saw were the crazies in my dream.
So when who's the first person you saw when you woke up? Do you
It
remember?
was no. Well, yes, it was. So it was it was a doctors and nursing team.
Yeah.
And when I was able to speak, I actually was not speaking English. I was speaking Spanish and Italian. So,
Yeah, and they probably thought you were like off the beaten path where you came from in terms of who you
oh
were.
yeah. And I know I woke up angry. Whatever it was, I woke up mad. So I did not realize what had happened. I just know I woke up and these bright lights and medical team was surrounding me. So I was mad.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, me, it was just I got shipped over to the other hospital. They checked me in, and I
Hmm.
saw my neurosurgeon come in on the next morning. Little old guy, I remember, short little bald guy came in, and he says, "How are you?" And I said, I kind of said to him, how good do you expect me to be? I'm in a hospital on Christmas morning. Like, I told him Merry Christmas. So I had my cognitive was fine. I knew what was going on and all that. But I do remember the one thing he said to me. He said to me, "This is going to get worse." And I'm going, "How can it get worse? I'm lying in bed on
Yeah.
Christmas Eve." He goes, "You're going to become Christmas Day, sorry. You're going to become paralyzed." And I said, "Oh my God." So he said the system had not kicked in yet. I was starting to lose function because I could feel it. And I did become paralyzed there. And so I was there for like 3 days in the hospital because of the holiday schedule there. And part of it is because they just need to make sure everything was good. So everything
Mhm.
happened. And then on On Saturday morning, a young girl came in. She was probably no more than 23. I was kind of her first patient. She was the clinic operations clinic person who was going to get me discharged and moved to a rehab center.
Hmm.
And I think I scared the hell of her. I yelled at her. I told her I wasn't going to go because they were going to move me to a hospital out in the other thing. They kind of lied to me to get to the place, but I don't blame them because they really wanted the bed, as you said. But
Yeah.
I must have freaked this young girl. And if she ever sees this video, I would love to apologize and meet her. I mean, this is 11 years ago. She's probably around 35, and and I'm hoping she didn't get out of the industry because of me, because I was not the nicest guy. And like you said,
Oh
you're
boy.
angry, but
Hmm.
I was just so adamant about going to a hospital closer to my wife's work. And then also I told her I'm not going to go. And I know on the Sunday she came in to confirm. And then Monday morning she came in and says, "Okay, you're supposed to leave now. Are you going?"
Oh my
And
God.
my wife looked at me and says, "Do I have a choice?" And she goes, "Well, not really. I mean, you go home." But I said, "No, I want to get better, so let's go." But it was the greatest move, and I can't thank her enough for having the fortitude and putting up with my BS. Whoever I don't remember her name. I wish I did, because I'd probably go look for her and just apologize for 11 years of maybe having trauma because of me.
Kevin, I cannot see you being a mean, snarky, or well, I can't see you being a mean person.
I can get snarky because I understand what service is all about. So I can blow a gasket under those. I won't in
Hmm.
public that way. I use the phone as sort of that barrier, I guess. But with
Okay.
her, I did. We were sitting there, and I know my wife saying, "You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't yell at these people." I said, "Look, I'm pissed off." She goes,
Yeah.
"I know you're pissed off, but you got to understand, it's just doing their job." And they were, and she did. And as I said, I would love to apologize to her one day, whoever she is. And this is over at Toronto Western Hospital. I understand she had left because this is the thing. I went back to Toronto Western to say hi to some of the people that I worked with, the nurses and the team there. Because
Yeah.
I had the doctor, I had to go back for a checkup after, and I went up to the floor and she had left that. So I don't know. I'm
Way,
hoping she didn't leave because of me, that she went to another hospital and she's still doing what she's doing, because I'm
yeah.
sure she's great at it. So,
Way to go.
um,
Well, that's why we get along because you're a snarky asshole and so am I.
well, yeah, we can be. I guess there's moments in that when we have our thing. So you wake up from your coma. What's next? You get into rehab, I guess, is your
Yep.
whole process. So what do you remember about rehab and the people that you worked with?
Rehab was interesting. My initial PT, physical therapists, they were great. They were very patient with me because like you, I was very snarky and and not the nicest. I pushed buttons. I have a sick and twisted sense of humor, so anyone that works with me has to be able to take it and or give it back, right? So thankfully they did, and it took a while, but I didn't realize I was paralyzed on my left side because, as you know, the right brain controls the left side of your body, and my stroke was on the right side. I had a hemorrhagic stroke on that affected my entire left side, so I didn't realize it at first, but I couldn't walk, and my left arm was paralyzed and unfortunately to this day still is. So I have little function in my left arm and hand, if none. And so it took about a month to regain the strength to walk safely ish.
Yeah, well, it's
so
good.
so I experienced about that length in the hospital just focusing on walking.
Good for you. Well,
Yeah.
I know you have the fortitude. So,
Mhm.
recovery is what it is. And, as again, we're talking about soccer and all that. And I think this is part of the recovery is for, I look at it with soccer as all the fans, all the heartache.
Yeah.
They went through 3 games, and some of the games are good, some of the bad. Now, as we get into the, the playoffs and everything else, the eliminations, I can see people how sad they become.
Oh.
And it sort of reminds me of us because recovery is a tough go. I remember I got out to West Park. So West Park, I went to the old one. There's a new one they've rebuilt since. But that's the place I didn't want to go because it's so far north, a long way for my wife to come. Friends all live down in the city, and I thought more about them. And I wanted them to come visit, but I didn't want them to spend endless hours having to commute. And that was the thing that kind of did that. My parents lived out in Scarborough, and they had to come out. So, it was one of those things. But the people I met were the most incredible people. I had two women I worked at, and I apologize, I don't remember their names as well. They no longer work at West Park. They're still in the industry, but they're elsewhere. And they made my life a living hell in a
Oh
good way,
no.
but in a
Oh,
good way,
okay.
because they knew I wanted to get better, and they were
Mm-hmm.
honest with me, and they pushed me, and they wanted me to get better. Part of the thing is I was like one of the younger people in the stroke recovery at that time. And so they loved working with me and trying new things because I had the energy and the fortitude to want to. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a living hell in a bad way. It was a living hell that they wanted me to get better soon and quick. I ended up getting 3 hours a day, roughly.
Yep.
I asked for up to five. Um, we're gonna be running out of time here, dear. We're gonna have to
Okay.
set up I'll send you another invite right after. But the fortitude of having that was one of the things that really um, I trusted in with everything. And thankfully, they put up with my antics,
Mm-hmm.
put up with my impatience, and we kept going forward with, the recovery. And I can't thank them enough, and I can't thank the staff at West Park enough
Mm-hmm.
just for working with me, putting up with me, and giving me every tool in the book that they had available to let me recover. And I owe a lot to where I am today to them. So,
Mm-hmm.
for that, it was that. You left the hospital. Did you go back into outpatient?
I did. So the biggest, kick in the face was, and I know you were an athlete prior to your stroke. I as well was an athlete, and and I think after realizing that I was paralyzed and couldn't walk like I used to,
Yeah,
I thought, oh, this should be easy. I remember how I'm supposed to walk, and I thought, oh, it'll be a couple weeks. I'll be up and out, no problem. Learning to walk and learning, or we didn't realize that our brain was no longer connected to our muscles. So the nerves that control our arms and our legs, for me and for Kevin, were cut off. It was like a train running off the rails. So trying to get up and walk and do all of the things that we did, that we used to pre-stroke, we're no longer, we were no longer able to do, because the nervous system that was connected to those muscle groups were no longer connected.
yeah.
So that
That's
was the one of the biggest shocks for me. Like I said, 3.5 years later, I'm still strengthening my legs to be able to walk better. I've fallen a number of times still to this day, and
yeah.
it's
I hear
always
you.
a surprise to me and frustrating.
Oh yeah. I still
Hmm.
get frustrated after all this time, like you. And I know a lot of the stroke survivors. Everyone's frustrated because our body just won't cooperate, and that's sort of the tough part. Is It's just said, we lose the connection. I remember being in rehab, and I remember just about to leave. I was there for 30 days as an inpatient. I was coming back to be an outpatient. So believe it or not, I was like I'd never wanted to go to West Park in the first place, but I loved the place so much I wanted to go back. I look back at the series, just before your time, but for those closer to my age, MASH or Klinger was always doing a Section 8 to try to get out of the war. And he wanted to leave to Korea. And at the end of it, he met a Korean wife. He married a Korean wife, and he ends up staying. And it's the funny part of that storyline. And for me, I went back to the people. Obviously, I got new OTs and PTs, but that was great because then the people that I worked with got to see me, and the people that they can also help their other colleagues helped me get through more stuff, and they even joined in now and then just to see how I was progressing. So the smartest move I made through the recovery was going back to the same hospital, which I spent over a year through kind of different ways. My OT and PT got me to stay on. I
Mhm.
got to swim. I did swimming exercises. I know, as I said before, I was leaving. Uh, the girl that was signing me off says, I said, I want to play sports in May. So this is January coming in. So summer sports are coming up. And she says, well, I love your attitude. I love your fortitude, but I want to be honest with you. You might want to think about sitting out a year. And I said, there's no way. Give me a few exercises. I'll get
Yeah.
better and let's get this. And she goes, well, I'm gonna prove a point. And she proved her point by handing me a dumbbell and I had to lift it and I couldn't lift it. And she said, well, this is your problem. You can't even lift. And I said, what is it, like 10 pounds? She says, no, one. I couldn't even lift a 1 pound weight.
Mm-hmm.
I will always remember her honesty in terms of telling me, you got to be realistic about your recovery. You need to be part of it. You need to be pushing it. And again, if I look at the soccer, sometimes you have, some people are thinking, oh, certain teams like Argentina just played and they were playing Egypt, I think, and they were
Mm-hmm.
down 2-0, but no one gave a chance that you could score one goal. So you got to have that fortitude. You got to trust and believe in yourself that you can get through this. So hence why, I'm trying to relate some of what we're doing through World Cup. So you get home, and what happens? You now have in the States, of course, they have a different system in terms of rehab. I think you have to now have either work insurance or
Mm-hmm.
life insurance to continue rehab. Is that correct?
Yes, and I can only speak to the state of Pennsylvania and in my area, Pittsburgh. So, and I believe in the United States in general, most of us get our health care through our work provider.
Okay.
So it is an insurance policy that we have through our employer. And that was no different than what I had. So I had insurance through my employer and then, and then there's, if you don't have that, there's all these other programs that are offered to people who require assistance in the state. So my medical provider was through my employer. I was put on a short-term disability and then transitioned to a long-term disability since I was unable to return to work right away. And that's what covered my medical procedures and requirements for my issues
Yeah,
and covered
everything you
rehab
need.
initially.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, in Canada, we have free healthcare. So when I went to the hospital, everything's covered. I
Mm,
know.
must be nice.
And then when I went through rehab for both in and outpatient, it was covered by we call it OHIP here in Ontario. The province's healthcare covered all that. But again, at the beginning, it's open, but in the end, it's when you go as an outpatient, it's limited to how many weeks. That's why I was able, excuse me,
Bless you.
through my therapist to get an extra bunch of months because was just being able to get signed off to do that. And they saw the recovery happening. So I owe them a debt of gratitude for allowing me to continue my recovery there.
Mhm.
And then from there, I then joined a gym. I had a personal trainer. I had a massage therapist. I had a yoga instructor, and to all of them, each and every one of them individually helped me get through the aches and pains. And they taught me things. This is a guy who's never done yoga before, and Teresa did a great job. She's a friend of my buddy's wife, or her niece, and Teresa was getting back to Canada, and she got me through a lot of the meditation and parts to help me breathe and things like that. Just we're talking about recovery after the fact. So now that you've uh, gotten home, I asked if you recovered. We're both talking about that, so maybe you can kind of quickly go back over. You had insurance, long term, short term disability, you said,
Mhm.
and currently you are doing rehab.
Well, I had to take a little bit of a break from my intense rehab because I recently had to have my fifth brain surgery on the left side of my brain. You can kind of see my scar there. Sorry if anybody's grossed out. Um, so my stroke was caused by a rare disease called moya moya. It is where the disease attacks the main arteries to your brain, which is the carotid arteries, and so both sides of my brain were affected with moya moya. And to treat it, you undergo a double bilateral cranial bypass where the neurosurgeon creates a bypass so that blood can successfully flow throughout your brain and get it oxygen. Unfortunately for me, my bypasses did not or were not effective. So I had to get another one done, a direct bypass on my left side. And so that was done about 6 weeks ago. And so
So
that's why I'm not in my physical therapy right now. I had
yeah,
to take a little bit of a break to allow some time to heal and get that blood flowing effectively to the left side of my brain. And I just found out we are not going to correct the right side because it's a little too risky right now for me to go
right.
back under the knife due to the progressive nature of moya moya.
Yeah, I think if you hadn't heard our last podcast, Jess was away and this is the procedure, and she talked about moya moya and everything else. So go back to our last podcast, and she has a more in-depth talk about the recovery and the actual operation. But yeah, it just goes to show, again, in the world of soccer, injuries happen. Canada lost one of their best players. Certain other teams did. And in recovery, you just don't know, right? You go through all this and then you get bad news, good news. It kind of one of the things. And I think you said to me offline just that, yeah, it's something they'll revisit, but not today, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years. But
Mhm.
it's still not a definitive no. It's just a matter of how Jess recovers from this one and to see if they actually need to do another one because her recovery is the one the side they haven't touched is the side they got the most affected and caused her stroke on her left side. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep you guys up to date on how things are. And for me, it was like it was all straight through in terms of once I got out of the hospital, I just focused on rehab for 2 years. Like I was doing everything. And then I quit everything because my rehab was taken away from me. My wheelchairs was taken away from me. All the different stuff that come with part of the health benefits we have here in Canada. But it wasn't going to stop me. And I hope people that watch this video, you don't stop yourself. You have to find an alternative way. As I mentioned, one of my friends, Bill, who does his own podcast, he started resourcing free things. I know in Canada we have the March of Dimes. Heart and Stroke is the big one out in the US. And go on their websites. There's a lot of exercise programs, of support groups you can join in terms of helping your recovery. So make sure you check that out. In terms of the event space. In my website, there is a link to all these different places, Heart and Stroke and March of Dimes. So be sure you do that. So I guess, Jess, what's next? We've kind of now up to July,
Yep.
and you're now gotten all the news. You've done you're going to get back into doing exercise and recovery soon. So
Oh,
hopefully
yes.
soon enough once you feel fit and ready to go.
Hmm.
So what's next for you as we try to get wrap up on the podcast? What do you believe is next for you in terms of the rehabilitation, the people are before we even get into that, who are the people you really want to thank now today? Aside from the people we've already thanked, are the people that have come into your life that really made a world of difference as you go through the next part of your recovery?
Yeah, and I think it is and will be and continue to be my rehab partners. So I worked really closely with an organization here called Neuro Access, and I know they're expanding across the US, and they specialize in neuro recovery. So anyone that's had a TBI, they specialize in getting those people like us back on our feet
Yeah.
and able to reach the physical goals that we set for ourselves. And they are amazing. And continue to thank my neuro team, my neurosurgeon, neurologist, my PTOTs. They're amazing because I have significant physical goals to return to, and they're the ones that are helping me get there.
Yeah, good. I'm good you're staying in touch with these people. And we compare our countries and different things, even in healthcare, but each of them have the same ambitious goal to help us get to where we are
Mhm.
at different levels, obviously, and at different ways of insurance and healthcare policies and all that. But you have to fight through it and try to manage what you can and try to do what you can. A lot can be done at home. I think for me, everything is like ever since I kind of gotten away from all that, I've been doing a lot on my own. I thank all my friends, and they know who they are, all the ones that have been supportive in, being with me, sticking through the whole thing. As I got back into playing golf and bowling and try to play baseball and hockey and all these things, hearing people just say, good on you for trying, good on you for keep going, because
Mhm.
that's all I want to hear is, hey, you keep going. So for me right now, it's just a matter of working in the stroke community. I'm retired, so I want to help the community advocate more. I'm joining so many different groups right now, and for me, it's something I think people should do. I don't know just what support groups you're part of, but I'm not suggesting you should just go and join one tomorrow. But they are a big part of your recovery as you move forward. They are your friends, and
Yes.
think of them in the soccer world as we do. We walk around. The ones that came to Toronto to play, we have a big Portuguese, Italian neighborhood, and all the different nationalities there. And I can tell you, they all got together. People that didn't know each other got together and supported. People that probably weren't even, their country may not have been in the World Cup, but they joined
Mhm.
another country just for the sake of cheering for someone. And to see it on the streets and the stands, how people just join together and try to make the game exciting and wanted someone to win, and that'll continue for the next 4 or 5 days as you're starting to wrap up
Mhm.
the World Cup and I encourage people to meet new people, meet new survivors. Jess and I met at an event I ran last 2 years ago with a partner in New York, and I got to meet her mom and herself, and we talked about that. And Jess was just about a year into her recovery, so I've now known Jess for coming up to 4 years. We continue to dialogue. We met once since, and hopefully we'll continue to meet as we grow older. And the whole thing for me is about making contact with people. It helps me therapeutically, mentally, physically, in just knowing how people are going, knowing what people are going through, and trying to help them, and they help me as well in terms of what goes on. Any last words, Jess, in terms of just, great hearing your story, some of the stuff I did not know about, obviously, in terms
Mhm.
of your recovery and how you've gone through rehab and the real key people that have come into your life.
Oh yeah, I think the last thing I'd like to add is, the reality of having a stroke sucks. But what helps me, and I know Kevin, and maybe you, helps us get through it, is the community that we surround ourselves by. And there is no one else like a stroke survivor that knows what you're going through and how you're going through it. So find your community and lament to us and lament to those of us that have gone through these traumatic experiences because we know exactly what you're going through. And joining a stroke support group, I know I'm in one here in Pittsburgh. It meets every second Saturday of the month. And they are amazing people. And we always, have a good time together because it sucks. Having a stroke sucks. And the journey to recovery is long and it's hard. And we all know what that's like. So we can relate to it. And it's helpful to have your friends and community with you through the journey. So just make sure you're taking care of your brain, be kind to your mind, and keep going. It can't stop, won't stop.
Absolutely. And just to add to Jess's thought process, lived experiences, which she was really alluding to as well. We're the only ones that know what a stroke feels like, what it's like. Everyone else can look at this, and I'm sure Jess gets it now and then where people think, she looks fine, what's wrong with her, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. And I get it all the time. And I think part of that is a blessing that we have, our growth and our recovery has been that good that people see that. Well, we know what's going on in the mind of ours, and that's the whole process that we have to work on. And that's something that,
Right.
our advice to everyone listening to this podcast is do that. You know, be the CEO of your body, as I've mentioned before, that I picked up from another stroke survivor, and just continue to monitor your body and continue to grow and continue to work on recovery. Uh, find that journey, find that road that's going to help you become better, because mental health is a huge issue, and we both aren't perfectly, of sound mind, because we still struggle with the recovery, we struggle with the frustration, as she'd mentioned, and that's okay. You're allowed to, but at the same time, you can't let it become you. You have to get through that piece. It's like anything in life. You can be sad for a moment, like the soccer, as we wrap up with the World Cup. There are teams right now, 30, 40 teams have been eliminated. So they're all sad. They've all flown back to their countries, and another 4 years from now, they'll gather together and do the same thing over again.
USA, USA, USA.
But at the end of it all, that's what recovery is all about. You recover from all the bad. Losing sucks. Being having a stroke sucks. But you
Yeah.
have to get through it, and eventually you will recover. And your day goes on, your life still goes on. It ain't the end of the world. But it does slow down our world. But at the same time, I've seen so many people recover to the level. So good on all of you. Thank you again for listening to our podcast. We hope that, we talk about sports and how recovery is a sporting event, because you do a lot of exercises. You have a team of people that help you. Uh, I try to make it fun when I was with my people. I don't know what Jeff said, but I gave them a hard time in a fun way, because I really wanted to forget about what I was really going through mentally, and just try to make this exercise. Like tomorrow, I was going to go play baseball tomorrow, uh,
Mhm.
but the injury just didn't recover. And we've seen many athletes that go through injuries that last years, and then they come back and play. So same one. Jess,
Yep.
good seeing you. Good talking to you. Stay
You
well.
too.
We'll see you back again in another week or so, and we'll talk about something different. And you catch us on all our things. There'll be the link below for both our webs, both our pages on Instagram. I have a Linktree account as well, so do
Mhm.
that. This will be on TikTok and some of the other social media broadcasting systems that are out there. So we look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Jess, look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
See you,